Good afternoon and welcome to a special discussion today at The Wire. The top business story of this week is the death of VG Siddhartha, the tycoon who founded the iconic Cafe Coffee Day chain. His body today morning was recovered from the Netravati River in Mangalore in what is police are suspecting is a case of attempted suicide, but that has not yet been confirmed. The circumstances of his death have surprised and shocked many across the business community, and of course amongst his friends and family. Firstly, because Cafe Coffee Day's holding company, Coffee Day Enterprises, has had quite a bit of debt that it has accumulated over the last few years. Latest corporate filings show that it had over 6,000 crore in debt. And Siddhartha's other businesses, primarily in the infrastructure space, also had 2,000 to 3,000 crore debt. And over the last year, it has emerged that this debt became unmanageable to a certain extent because of the ILFS crisis. Namely, that debt that could have otherwise been rolled over by lenders was not. In the last 2 years, the Cafe Coffee Day founder has also had various run-ins with India's income tax department. In 2017, the company's offices were raided in Bangalore over allegations of undisclosed income. And in a statement put out last night, the income tax department has also pointed out that in sworn affidavits, Siddhartha and Coffee Day have admitted to unaccounted income of over 300 crore. But what has really sparked a lot of outrage is a letter reportedly written by Siddhartha himself and which made its way into the public domain yesterday. The authenticity of this letter is still being debated, although most media channels have reported that it is indeed his letter. In this letter, he identifies three issues which led him to succumbing to this situation. That's a direct quote. One was pressure from his private equity partners over a buyback of shares, the details of which are not known. Two is stress and sort of pressure from his lenders. And three is sort of the harassment that he faced at the hands of the income tax department. Earlier this year, to sort of manage his debt, Siddhartha decided to sell his shares in Mindtree to L&T. And this process was held up by the income tax department because they first attached his shares in Mindtree in order to recover the unaccounted income, reportedly, and then they went on to attach Cafe Coffee Day's own shares. So today we're joined by MK Venu with The Wire. MK Venu, thanks for joining us. Venu, we will discuss this and also the larger situation, the debt crisis in India's industry and the stress being faced by a large party of stakeholders. But many people have reacted in two different manners to Siddhartha's death. So one is obvious sadness and the kind of the pressures that the businessmen and entrepreneurs take upon themselves, the fear of failure. That is one section. And another section is sort of targeted the external factors that are mentioned in the alleged letter. So harassment from the IT department, pressure from private equity partners and non-transparent deals. Where do you stand on this situation and where do you think the truth lies?
I think, Anuj, it's a combination of the two narratives that you just put out. One, it is true that the economy is really sort of in the last 5-6 years has gone from bad to worse. There's no sign of the economy improving, either in terms of pickup in consumption. Now, why should Cafe Coffee Day fail? He has so many outlets. He was an entrepreneur, and his main business was to create some 150 outlets across different cities.
Yeah, more than that.
It's more than that, yeah. So, on the face of it, on paper, it was a business which had no reason not to succeed.
Yeah.
But then, why has it failed? Because two reasons. In India, entrepreneurs are under a lot of pressure today because the economy is not doing well, consumption is down, and they've taken debt primarily. When you take on debt, you essentially bet Anuj, on an economy which is booming.
Yeah.
So this is the mistake that bulk of India Inc. or Indian businesses made during UPA2, when we had very robust growth. For about 6-7 years we had about 8% growth. So everybody betted on India delivering 8% growth consistently for about 10, 15, 20 years. That hasn't happened.
Yeah.
On the contrary, the economy...
And they made investments on that projection.
Yeah, investments were made on that basis. So I would say Siddhartha's is one of the many, as an entrepreneur, as an entrepreneur who betted on the Indian economy, became vulnerable. One of the many victims of the Indian economy not performing or performing way below potential. Now, added to this is the way our regulatory and our income tax and our enforcement systems work. Unfortunately, they treat businessmen as criminals, and especially small and medium businesses. You find that in the last 4-5 years, there's a pattern. The way small businesses, 2,000, 3,000 crore, 5,000 crore, whether they are real estate companies, whether they are small businesses like VG Siddhartha, the way the income tax and other enforcement agencies go after them with such gusto, you don't see the same enthusiasm or the same kind of aggression on the part of agencies or IT department shown in the case of the big companies. The big cronies. I mean, we all know the names. The top 15. They have also not paid the debt. Many of them owe upward of 75-80,000 crores each group. They have not repaid the debt. Long overdue. Many of them are suspected and even being investigated for diverting money out of the company into related party companies or into other businesses which they're not supposed to. But they are being given. I'm sorry to say they get soft treatment. They're getting more breathing space. Their loans are even now being restructured. Largely because there's a politics behind it, because the top 20 also fund the ruling party or the other big governments, even regional parties, right? So we have a caste system which operates among businesses. So my point is that while there is a genuine crisis, the crisis of consumption slowdown, economic slowdown, and businesses are under stress across the board. And however much the government might claim that the NPA crisis is over, we are seeing the second round of NPA crisis, which is now, earlier it was the public sector banks, now it's got passed on to the NBFCs, non-banking finance companies. And these are the companies which have lent to people like Siddhartha. And the other issue in this particular case, in Cafe Coffee Day's case, is that private equity investors who are ostensibly putting in equity on paper, and these are big names, and when they invest, all other small shareholders, small investors also get enthused, because when these big names like Blackstone, like KKR and others, when they invest in a company, they send out a positive signal that, okay, these guys have a proven track record of investing in companies and even handholding, providing them necessary governance, etc. But now it turns out that some of the PE investors were actually giving them debt in the guise of they were lending to these companies in the guise of equity.
Sure.
Which means they were not really interested in the governance of that company or seeing that the company creates value.
Which is what you would expect when a
global would expect from a private equity firm. They were merely wanting their money back, at a certain rate of return. And I think his note suggests, VG Siddhartha's note suggests that he was under a lot of pressure from them. He was the income tax department, the mistake that the income tax department invariably makes is when it goes aggressively after these people to recover the tax, what they end up doing is they hamper their day-to-day business by for instance, in this case, by seizing their shares, the shares that he had, 3,000 crore worth of shares of Mindtree. They actually they created a hurdle in his business. Right? He wanted to sell those shares and pay off everybody. Maybe they could have paid off the income tax also.
Sure, correct. So I mean, this is the point that I want to specifically address, because he does mention the former DG of income tax, and that income tax officer, I don't want to mention his name because the letter is still up for grabs, but he's due to retire today. And by all reports, he is an honest officer. He was responsible for various other the Gutka scam in Tamil Nadu. Is involved with that as well. When an income tax officer looks at this situation, so in the case of VG Siddhartha and Cafe Coffee Day, there was he needed to get back money that was due to the income tax department. Okay, should the income tax department strike in very delicate situations like this, when the promoter owes debt that needs to be repaid, he's trying to get through a deal? So on one hand, you could say that yes, it's harassment, it's not allowing ease of doing business.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, from the regulatory law enforcement perspective, this is the best time to strike. One could say that's the other side, right? That surely he will pay me now if I strike when so much more is at stake.
No, if I were the income tax officer dealing with this case, I would have actually facilitated the sale of his shares on the condition that he pays whatever is due to me.
Yeah.
Also, Anuj, income tax. I want to say something here. The income tax department and the other enforcement departments like ED or CBI, unfortunately, they also play politics. An officer may be honest, but he may just be carrying out the instruction of the ruling party of the day. Now, in this case, we all know that VG Siddhartha had close links to the opposition party. In fact, one leading opposition party member in Karnataka was close to him.
Yes.
And in 2017, before the Karnataka Assembly elections, that opposition party member was raided, and within a few weeks, VG Siddhartha was also raided, right?
Correct. Yes.
And VG Siddhartha's father-in-law, SM Krishna, an old congressman, former chief minister of Karnataka, joined the BJP. In my view, probably because they were under pressure, and BJP is known to have gotten people from the leading leaders from the opposition parties within Karnataka, Maharashtra, Assam. There are West Bengal. The examples galore.
Yeah.
They use these agencies. The current government has used these agencies to get people over to walk over from the opposition parties to their side.
Yeah.
I think Vijay Siddhartha's case has gotten mixed up with all these political machinations.
Sure.
Unfortunately, in India, wherever you go, businesses do have a relationship with politicians. That's the way this country works. It should not be working that way, but it works that way because of the sheer because of the sheer non-transparency or non-transparent ways in which election funding is done, which we all know about.
Yeah, sure.
The BJP has got 95% of all electoral bonds, which have been bought by big businesses. 95% of whatever 5,000 crores the last 1 year. I think all these we must keep all these things in mind when you look at the backdrop. You study the backdrop in which such tragedies occur.
Correct.
So people leave the country. So I know a senior cabinet minister of NDA boasting that the number of millionaires who have left India in the last maybe 4-5 years has doubled. People who are seeking tax residency abroad. He boasted that it's a sign of the success of their anti-corruption campaign. Now, if this is the way the government views, businessmen leaving the country and tarring all of them with the same brush,
Correct.
which is like criminalizing business, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's true. Maybe 10-20% of them may have left the country because they had something to hide. They were laundering money, which is also happening. But to tar the entire business community with the same brush, I think the India government needs to say something, needs to send out a strong signal.
Correct.
That it's not going after small and medium businesses.
Correct.
Because
Yeah.
people are asking questions as to why they don't touch the top 10-15 businesses
Correct.
in the country.
Yeah, coming back to Cafe Coffee Day's debt issue, and this is sort of emblematic of the rest of the industry. So 3,000 to 4,000, 5,000 crore of debt is not a lot in the large scheme of things.
Yeah.
But apparently, and multiple media reports noted this, that after the ILFS controversy, this debt could simply not be rolled over. In any other year, in any other good economic situation, they would have allowed it to go on, and they wouldn't have demanded that he pay
sure.
up.
Yeah.
Is this so? Do we just look at this as sort of a freak event with what's going on ILFS, or is this symptomatic of a much stronger liquidity problem, right, in the country currently?
It's a huge, Anuj, it's a huge liquidity problem, which the government, the current regime is refusing to even acknowledge. you saw the budget. The budget had provisions for RBI taking direct charge as a regulator of NBFCs, non-banking finance companies. Now we don't know what is happening to, for instance, DHFL.
Yeah.
Dewan Housing and Finance Limited. It's also got about 90,000 crore of debt which it has to pay. We have Reliance Capital, which people thought was one healthy entity in the Anil Ambani stable. We don't know what's going on with Reliance. It has just signed an intercreditors agreement where the banks have agreed to sort of prolong their repayment period. So more and more such cases are coming out. And Anuj, I think this will take another 15-18 months to play out. We are going into a deeper kind of we are sinking deeper into a morass because there is no liquidity. The government may claim that by injecting liquidity, government bond yields have come down to 6.5%. But if you ask the private sector, they are saying there is no relation between the low government bond yields and the high interest rate that a corporate has to pay 9-10%. For a 1 year paper, in the market, when they go out to borrow in the market, there is no relationship between the government bond yields and the interest rate that companies are paying.
Yeah.
And all the NBFCs, most NBFCs. Now, initially we thought there were few housing finance companies in trouble because they're lending to real estate. The real estate sector is in a complete logjam, as you know. 1,75,000 crores of investments in housing lying completely sort of frozen. The real estate developer is not able to complete the project. So that's one set of problem. Now I feel that this crisis has gone beyond the housing finance companies. It's gone to other finance companies which are in the process of shrinking the balance sheet, largely because consumption has slowed down, and they also do not find businesses. For instance, auto industry is slowing down month after month. Some of these better finance companies were actually lending to auto and growing the business. Now their balance sheets will stagnate for the next at least 6 months to a year, definitely. So I don't see us coming out, our economy coming out of the liquidity crisis at least for another 1 year.
And Venu, for small and medium businesses, so the issue of tax terrorism, of course, this came up very heavily during the UPA 2 and UPA 1 era, and now it doesn't seem to have. It seems to be a structural facet of the Indian economy to a certain extent. Is the current government doing enough? So last month we saw 20 senior income tax officers being summarily, went in for.
That was the first admission by the government that senior tax officers are dishonest stroke corrupt and are indulging in unfair illegal practices.
What is the one biggest thing that they can do? So you've said that they've started this, but does the pressure come from at the central government level where they decide targets, this much needs to be collected, or is there too much opportunism at the lower levels and too much avenues for where they can poke and prod and try to get?
I find often people say that tax officers at the lower levels are corrupt, but for the lower level guy, goes for small change. He would harass you for small money. But I find that that commissioner level people, see, this government removed about 20 senior people, right? They were found to be sort of indulging in all kinds of practices, blackmail, and
these are officers you would not expect such behavior.
Yes, such behavior. So I don't know what is the solution to this. One solution could be that the government should just tell tax officers not to have physical interface with businesses and just deal through maybe
through digital.
Have a digital interface and tell businesses to basically declare their incomes and their tax that they have to pay, and later if they're found to be sort of wrongly declared, then you can go after them. But for instance, take GST. People are being arrested for not paying GST, whereas the larger problem in GST clearly is that the economy has slowed. So GST collections are way below target, right?
Correct.
much of the 1
today's
lakh
CAG
70,000
report.
crore that we could not collect, government could not collect in 18-19 was on account of GST.
Yeah.
So, but GST has a provision, anti-profiteering clause. They're just going after businesses, say on the ground that they either not paying GST, not passing on GST to the customer. So all these things. I don't know, how does the government regulate its officers? This is a big problem, and I'm afraid the way the finance ministry is today, I doubt whether, I have not heard anything from the finance minister on this issue. We need a strong leadership at the finance ministry level to really rein in the, the tax and the enforcement guys.
Correct.
I still remember when Arun Jaitley took over as finance minister. The first year after the first budget, he had a little gathering in his house, and it called a lot of journalists, people who covered the economy. So, in that, a lot of people told him that your biggest challenge will be how to rein in the tax officials, who have, unfortunately, I have not seen many governments being able to control them. They just run amok.
Correct. Okay, so I think that brings us to the end of our discussion. The Cafe Coffee Day board, news is just coming in that they held an emergency meeting yesterday, and they'll be having another one today. They've appointed an interim board to quickly deleverage the company and look at the way forward. And we will be bringing you that news and everything else in the coming weeks. Thanks for joining us.